After about 3 or 4 days in jail, I thought, oh my gosh, I haven't had a hit and I'm okay, because I honestly thought that I would die if I didn't, but just the shock of being in jail was outweighed my dependency on P. Jail is a real safe place. We get fed every day, we don't have to worry about bills, we've got a roof over our head, we're looked after really well in there.
The women, they make up about 5% of the prison population, and the women seem to have made a conscious decision to go to prison. It's in a lot of ways prisoners save their lives. It's got them out of violent relationships, out of prostitution, out of drug use. Men seem to have kind of just about gone to prison and really have no idea how they got there. It's like they woke up one morning and find themselves in a prison cell and go, gosh, how did I get here?
All we knew was this is not normal behaviour for somebody to be acting the way he was acting. All we knew is that there's a horrendous anger here. David didn't know he had this mental illness. He had had it for quite some time, but had gone undiagnosed. We knew something was coming. We tried everything within our power. Our whole family tried. We did everything we could, but met a lot of closed doors. I personally thought it would be myself that he would harm. David was high a lot of the time because he was self-medicating. He was trying to treat the voices that were in his head the best way he knew how. Down some alcohol, smoke a joint.
When you get into prison, you're not accountable to anybody. You can sit there for 2 years and not do anything and never face anybody. You never make any decisions, so I'm not quite sure where you're supposed to start making good decisions from, and you're not responsible for anything.
I was like on my best behaviour in jail. The Sycamore Tree was a course that I heard about and I thought, oh, I want to do that. And so I think I went on the very first Sycamore Tree course and it was an eye-opener. It was awesome.
The program that I did was run up at Perenemarimu. It was run in a lower risk unit. And I started out feeling pretty confident, at the same time absolutely petrified. So we sit around in a group, inmate and victim, or participants, and we get to know each other and we get to know the basis of the program, which is the story of Zacchaeus.
And we look at that example that Jesus gives us where he actually stopped under that tree, looked up and said, come on down, I'm going to your place for dinner tonight. A lot of people were amazed that he would go to the home of such a notorious sinner. But what an example we're given. And once again, it really does go against the grain. It goes against human nature. Often when you can extend that forgiveness in the first place, then healing will come.
For a lot of the inmates, it's the first time they'd ever heard that story. And then that kind of sets the precedent for what this is about.
Prisoners were encouraged to tell us what had led them to become incarcerated. I told them about my younger son, Sammy, who had become involved in drugs probably around 16 or 17. I'm not sure what age he became involved in methamphetamine, P, and he just couldn't cope. His life became chaotic and he just sort of, everything was so difficult for him, and he ended up taking his own life 2 weeks after his 20th birthday.
Serving time in prison and enrolling in the Sycamore program has given Anita the vision to recognise the terrible effects drugs can have on the community.
Joy, I met on the Sycamore Tree program and had formed an immediate bond with her because she was a victim of P with regard to her son.
Joy and her husband had to deal with the suicide of their son, knowing that his addiction to methamphetamine caused him to take his own life.
I'm fortunate that I guess I've never really felt a victim, but I know the consequences of my son's lifestyle has affected myself and all our family.
Ever since Sammy took his life,
speaking with these people in prison, I think it's helping me to just get through my grief, but it's been grief for the loss of a son, not crossness at what's happened.
unlike Joy, I was I was angry with him. I sort of carried and tried to deal with that issue for ever since.
This program seemed something, that I could be involved in. When I finished my story, one of the ladies in the group came over to me and said, if I was one of the people that had sold your son drugs, would you forgive me?
And all I could think of was, my gosh, that could have been me that made the pea that caused your son to go down the road he did.
I was just blown away with what she said, and I said, yes, of course I would, and we hugged, and it was just fantastic.
The forgiveness that was there and how much it meant and it changed things. I've gone on to do the same.
Because I was always looked at that I was a victim of the pea, but there were heaps of victims, people that I caused a lot of damage to. It really made me look at things another way.
This is one of the only programs that I've been to that actually helps, that talks about the offending and having meet people that are similar.
Most of them are initially frightened as well, worried about, well, what kind of crime have they committed? From my own personal perspective, I wasn't worried because of the crime that my brother had committed. And when I shared my story during the Sycamore Tree program, the thing that I think that came up for me the most was during the time that David was put in front of the judge for the first time, and he arrived in the police car with a sheet over his head, and I kept thinking, that's my brother, that's my baby brother. And the whole world knows, but they don't know that he was a boy underneath it all who was so loving as a boy, and he was my father and my mother's son, and he was my brother. He's a human being.
The real victims of my crime were my family, my wife, my children, my parents who were massively hurt by this.
You can just see the shame that some of them feel for the crimes they've committed. And that experience was really quite humbling, just to know that, yeah, these guys are really sorry.
When you're in pain and you've experienced something so painful with a crime committed against you, it's really hard to see the other side of that.
And you don't really think of the offender as having a family outside. You know, we have this attitude, lock them up and throw away the key. But when you get to know them, they're just humans.
Anita was a model prisoner, but getting parole was problematic, as she needed an address that was alcohol and drug free. Having broken ties with her family, the only friend she had on the outside was Joy and her husband.
I think so many are just released and they're just standing at the front door hoping somebody will pick them up, and they're going straight back into the environment that they felt comfortable in.
Joy wrote to me and said, the Lord's placed it on my heart that I ask you if you would want to come and stay with us when you get out of jail. And I was just like, oh my gosh, this is amazing.
I can't say that all of our friends were happy, especially because she had been manufacturing pea. We felt it was what we wanted to do.
I was petrified about going outside. So it was really cool to know that I was going to Joy's, and oh, she was a darling. She had balloons out the front of the house as a welcome, and and I fitted into her family really well.
There's a wonderful psychiatric team that looks after my brother now. It's a cruel, cruel injustice that did not happen before he committed the crime.
Learning responsibility is actually a really tough thing to do when you're sitting in a prison cell, and yet the children and the partners and the extended family of prisoners are the ones who do the hard time.
Many people have asked me, well, would you preferred it that David had gotten off on an insanity plea and all of that kind of thing? And the answer is no. David committed a horrendous crime, and he needs to serve his time for what he has done, regardless of whether he has a mental health issue.
We do believe that there are some people in prison who need to stay in prison and probably sadly need to be there for the rest of their natural lives. It's not a big number though. You're probably talking around about 5% of people that are in prison now need to be there for good.
We want our offenders who are in prison to come out rehabilitated. But if that's going to happen, if that's what we want as an outcome, if that's our expectation, we all need to take responsibility and ownership of that.
We can drink our coffee in the morning and read our newspapers and just pretend, it's nothing to do with us, when really, one day, it all comes back.
I wanted to change. I really did. I didn't want to go down that hellish nightmare road that, I was living before I went to jail.
We have to give each other hope. We have to be a community and stop being individuals.
The rewards have been amazing by being drug-free, a model citizen again.
This program was funded by New Zealand On Air.